It's the beginning of the show. Do 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 do. Does anybody know why it's the beginning of the show? Because it's the beginning of the show. Welcome to a Friday edition. This thing, okay, this microphone stand is flopping around all crazy on me today. What's up, everybody? It's Friday. Welcome to the Pandemic Edition on a Friday. I believe it's Friday. I think it's Friday. Let me check the calendar here. It is April 10th. April 10th. Friday, April 10. The year is 2020. We're supposed to have flying cars, but we don't. We have a pandemic. No flying cars, but we do have a viral pandemic. Welcome to the year 2020, knee deep in viral pandemics. Hot and fresh for you. Hot and fresh pandemic action on a Friday in the year 2020. People wonder why my nose is all red and stuff. I've been working in my shop, and this is my baby respirator. The one that doesn't, it works okay. It works for dust, crust, and whatnot. Works pretty good, but I do have to wear my big respirator for the work I'm doing in my shop because it's just enough irritant to get me to doing the old coughing. And during a viral pandemic, it's not great to be having a little bit of a cough, if you know what I'm saying. Right? Yeah. Whoa, buddy. Okay, it's Friday. What do we got going on? Let me add a little video here to spice it up on a spicy Friday. That's not the video. This is the video. Let's push buttons. We should start from the beginning, right? Yeah, there we go. Y'all are getting a sneak peek. At the Rescape. Well, let me size it up here so it makes a little more sense, but then I have to scoot. Guys. I don't know if I want to scoot. Anyhow, let's resize this up so it's at eye level. So it feels like I'm looking at it, right? Like, hey, I'm looking right at you. Looking at the video, you guys are getting a chance to take a look at the first peek, a sneak peek at the Rescape of the Pinto Shrimp 120-gallon aquarium. You all get a chance to take a look at it. I feel like my mouse... Oh, you guys can't see my mouse. Okay, good. My mouse cursor was like right on top of the video, and I'm like, dude, come on now. Let's not have it right beyond the top. So you all can check it out and take a look at what's going on with the 120 Pinto Shrimp, which is... Pinto Shrimps are a crystal shrimp varietal. It basically... shows up as a coloration pattern more than anything, really. I mean, the shrimp are basically crystal shrimp. They're just a coloration pattern. So it would be like having a pit bull, right? And you'd be like, oh, my pit bull is blue colored. And you'd be like, oh, it's a blue pit bull. Yeah, so same kind of deal with this little guy over here. This just happens to be a black Pinto-style shrimp with a crown on his head. So we got that going for us today. But I figured I'd let you guys take a look at the Rescape. Check it out. See what's going on a little bit. And maybe you all have some questions for me at some point. Who knows? But might as well have extra things. I feel like I should have more stuff on the screen, just like 100 different things all over the screen, because, you know, that's how YouTube wants you to do it, right? You got to be super punchy. You got to have vlogs, blogs, all that kind of stuff, right? That's what we need to do. But, yeah, this is actually from this morning today. So this is actually pretty much up to date, unless the stuff has grown in the last 2 hours and completely gotten overgrown, which you never know. You just never know. Kylan Maurer is asking, can you keep Neos and Caridina together? I hear mixed opinions. Well, what you'd want to do is look up the water parameters and realize that they are different. Yes, Neo Caridina can live in the water that Caridina's like. They can. Will they thrive? Not really. I mean, they'll survive. They'll breed a little bit, but they're not going to thrive. I wouldn't be like... I guess it would be like the arowana talk we were talking about yesterday. It's like keeping a horse in your garage. Is it possible? Yes. Is that horse going to thrive? Likely no. So, you know, it's something that you could do. I wouldn't recommend it personally. From being a guy with a lot of shrimp experience, it's not something I would recommend, but you could pull it off, potentially. I just really think, like, if you're going to have Neocardinas, just get another fish tank. I mean, the reality is, if you're into shrimp, having a couple of fish tanks, not really that big of a deal, honestly, I think. You know, with just how cheap fish tanks are these days, you know, the Americans have forced the super cheap production of cheap aquariums, so they exist. So, you know, bag of substrate, that kind of stuff, you'd be fine. Sponge filters. So let's think. Let's say you got 2 10-gallon aquariums. You bought one big bag of substrate. So 10-gallon aquarium, like $12 after tax on the dollar per gallon sale. Big bag of, let's say you get the big bag of ADA, Amazonia. That's still $50. So 24 plus 50, depending on what part of the world you're in. So we're at $75, 2 sponge filters, and a air pump. So sponge filter, like 12, a good sponge filter, let's call it $12. So we're at $100. And the air pump is probably $20, like $19.99 to run 2 little sponge filters. So you're at $120. Yeah, that's pretty much all you need. And a desk lamp, which you probably have a desk lamp, so you'll be able to see what's going on in there. Let's call that 0, because most people have a light of some kind in their home. Yeah, so about $120. You could get the shrimp tank set up. Then you'd probably need some shrimp food. $10, $20, $30 over the year, you know, pretty simple. So then you just have to buy some shrimp. So that's the way I think, realistically, just set up a couple of tanks. Kylan Maurer says, and do you need to go all out on Bacter E, salts, etc., or is Corey's method of just some coral good for Neos? What's the difference for actual thriving Neos? Well, the reality is that's actually something we're going to cover in... Oh, let's go to the Patreon post, because the first Patreon post actually asks this basic question. Who sent this in? Tales from the Man Cave. So coming all the way from Sweden, it says, help, here I was boasting how my crystal reds were thriving, and within 2 weeks, all the younglings disappeared, which this does happen. And I find a dead grown-up every other day. Water parameters are... GH is sitting at 6.5. KH at 1, which... My KH is normally around 3. And my GH is probably right in 6. Also, pH 5.5 seems a little bit low. NO2, NO3, and NH4. Those all seem fine. I wouldn't really be that worried about it. But... here comes the kicker right here. I'm using about 2 inches of soil, substrate, and a matin filter, which Depends on the soil substrate. Like, you're probably using an aqua soil. If it's Tales from the Man Cave, then my guess would be some kind of aqua soil, which I would double check and see what's going on with your buffering. 5.5 pH is a little low for even crystal shrimp. So I'm kind of wondering what's going on with the buffering. But here is the real deal right here. Let me highlight it over here. Glass garden line, including Bacter AE, baby shrimp food, and feeding every day. So this can be a monumental problem with a small crystal shrimp tank, which I'm guessing this is probably a 10, maybe even a 20-gallon would be my guess. I wouldn't expect it to be much bigger than that. But what ends up happening is this Bacter AE can be extremely dangerous to use. Not like it's not toxic in its own right, but if you're utilizing things like Bacter AE on a daily basis, what ends up happening is you just slowly, sneakily creep up and getting just too much bacteria reaction and things going on in the tank with excess food and whatnot going on. I only feed Bacter AE once every 2 weeks. I don't even do it weekly anymore. I only feed it once every 2 weeks as an additive with some of the shrimp food that I feed, but I only feed shrimp food once every 3 days. So I skip 2 days, I feed. I skip 2 days, I feed. I skip 2 days, I feed. And the reason for that is kind of what I'm explaining right now. The thing that kind of freaks me out with this whole situation is that I've seen it in my own experience on numerous occasions when you have a shrimp colony collapse. It almost always leads in that same vein of like, well, I'm feeding every day, I'm doing my thing, I'm checking it out, I'm seeing what's going on, and slowly but surely, a little bit of ammonia creep, a little nitrite creep, something like that, just gets to a point where a couple shrimp die, right? A couple of shrimp, that's not a big deal, right? But we're talking like a small tank, even in a 10-gallon tank, just a couple of rotting shrimp, because when they die, a couple hours goes by, you're not around, temperature's a little warm. Like, I'm wondering what 23 Celsius is off the top of my head. Let me see. I can't think of what the Fahrenheit is. 23 Celsius to Fahrenheit. Hold on. I can't do the conversion in my head. So 73 is not, so let's say you're 23 Celsius, 24 Celsius, so you're in that 73 to 76 degree range, right? You don't want, obviously you don't want to have more temperature, but that's enough temperature that bacteria is just populating. Things are happening. So you get a couple of dead shrimp, which then, because you have that little bit of elevated ammonia and stuff because of the feeding, right, you're kind of pushing the ceiling of your ammonia and the ability to process the ammonia, especially with something like a Matten filter, right? You're not like aggressively moving water and that kind of stuff. But let's say the Matten filter also has a bunch of Bacter AE and leftover food in it, right? So the bacterial colony is going kind of wild in there. The bacteria goes over here, starts breaking down the shrimp, starts creating ammonia. Then the ammonia creeps up a little bit. Then another shrimp is like, oh my God, and dies. And then it's just this cascading effect, right? So that would be like, so my basic recommendation with a shrimp tank is don't feed too much until the colony gets big. But once the colony gets big, you're going to be feeding more, but you're going to have to do more servicing of the aquarium. And that's, realistically, that's when, people skip a day, you skip a thing, you skip a this or that or the other thing, and then the next thing you know, you're like, crap, more shrimp are dying. And the baby shrimp are much more, I think it's probably obvious to most people, but the baby shrimp are much more susceptible to, having some kind of toxic reaction to what's going on. Let's say you have one shrimp, which is equatable to 20 baby shrimp, right? And let's say you have 100 baby shrimp in there, then all the baby shrimp die, and oh crap, now you've got even more ammonia going on, right? So you can see how that kind of, I want to say cascading effect, but that's not really, the compounding effect is the word I'm looking for, of the whole colony starts to collapse because you have all these babies die, you have maybe one or two adults die, that kind of stuff, and then things just keep, compounding on top of each other. And before you know it, it's been 2 days, and all of a sudden your whole colony's like, everybody's dying, you don't know what's going on. So then you try to do like a catastrophic water change, that kind of stuff. So reality in my mind is that you have to really, really, really aggressively find that balance. Wherever the maintenance comes in and the feeding comes in. Now, for me personally, like I said, I skip 2 days between feeding because I'm an idiot and I get distracted. I forget to do my maintenance. I forget to do the changes. I forget to pull this filter pad out. I forget to da-da-da-da-da. I personally do that all the time. I am... and that's one of the things I want to talk about today with the guppies. Like, I am scatterbrained from time to time. I forget to do stuff. Like Bentley says, been working too much to keep my house properly clean. Yeah, it's really like, you come down to my office, there's no food or anything like that down here. It's not like dirty or anything, but it's a mess. Like, I have piles of cables and parts and things and like just nonsense in my office. I don't like that. I would like everything to be mechanically perfect and orderly and put away and all that kind of stuff. But I get personally caught up with the stuff that I'm working on. I have so many plates spinning. The baby's not feeling good. I got to go take care of the baby, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So that's why I've really dialed back how often I'm feeding, how much is added into the tank and stuff like that, because of this compounding effect that I've personally encountered many, many times, especially with a shrimp colony as sensitive as crystal shrimp. I have some Nancy shrimp now, which I'm very concerned about, fluffing that whole situation up. I don't want to whiff on that whole thing. Those are some pretty expensive shrimp, but we shall see how it works out. I haven't posted a video on those yet because, I don't want to. I just don't want to. I don't want to yet. I don't want to. I will at some point, but I'll talk about them during the live stream. That's fine. So it's just, it's all that kind of stuff that you sort of just need to take into consideration. And I think personally, making it easier on yourself to maintain a healthy colony, one of the best things to do is minimize your feeding until it's really necessary. And then once it's really necessary, you need to reevaluate just how much, mechanical work you're willing to put into taking care of the whole colony. You know what I'm saying? It's something that each person has to make a decision on. You have to make your own, you have to come to your own conclusion about what it is that you could actually maintain or not. Like, I love having aquariums that I don't have to do maintenance on it. I don't want it to be running at the brink of insanity, except for with my plants. Like, I like the plants being that way, and the reason for that is if some plants die, I'll get more plants. I'll get them. It'll happen. Over time, whether it be Etsy, whether it be Aquarium Co-op, whether it be wherever, I'll get more plants. That stuff will happen, and it won't be that big of a deal. But the shrimp just really, it stresses me out, and it makes me sad when they just go dying off. But you as a fish keeper, aquarist, whatever you want to call yourself, you're going to have to really make that decision on your own to what you're willing to do as far as maintenance and stuff goes. But once the shrimp colonies get big, you really have to take that kind of stuff into consideration. So, a lot of people out there want to just tell people, most people want to just tell people that like shrimp are easy because they've thrown some shrimp into a tank and it worked out. Like if you just throw some cherry shrimp into a tank and then it's like, oh, well, I've got a bunch of cherry shrimp, but it's like you're not necessarily maintaining it. You're not necessarily actively doing something with the tank. So I try to pass on my screw ups to give you guys kind of a good baseline of what it is you're willing to do or not. Hold on a second. I had to sneeze. That was crazy. That sneeze came out of nowhere, and I guarantee you has 100% to do with all the plastic drilling I've been doing recently. We got a $5 super chat. That's our first super chat of the day. Thank you very much from the Fish Tank Barn. Thanks, Mike. Says, Joel, would you consider auto water change and other automation to make it easier? I would, yes, in a way. If I had a pre-treat in place, so if I knew that the water coming in and out from the water change was always going to be legitimately what I want it to be. So a good example would be, so Corey was, somebody had quoted Corey earlier that it was like just throw some crushed coral in with the Neocaridinus, right? Kylan was saying that. Now, adding crushed coral with my water works because I have low pH water coming out of the tap. There's not a whole lot in it as far as buffering, as far as calcium, as far as that kind of stuff goes. So that is extremely helpful with my water. But if you lived in like Oklahoma or I don't know, whatever, Kentucky or something, like your water is going to be different than mine. So just adding crushed coral isn't necessarily going to be helpful for you personally. In my tanks, it is helpful because it adds some of that calcium, some of that buffering to the water that allows, that tank to kind of, those tanks to flourish because I am adding some of that to it. So I don't need to, like in certain parts of the country, like the Fish Tank Barn says, my water is crushed coral. Yes, some people out there have really hard water coming in. Now, if I pre-filter the water, then yes, an automatic water change system is pretty helpful. I've been testing out with the dehumidifier. All of the dehumidifying water has been going into the 150 gallon for, let's see, so it's April right now, so over 10 months now. Over 10 months, all of the water condensation from my dehumidifier has been going in to top off the 150 gallon aquarium. And I really would like to know, because I really wanted to know exactly what would happen if I was kind of doing that long term. I haven't gotten to a year yet, but once I get to a year, I think I'll probably make a video about what the ups and downs of it. There isn't that many downsides personally, but it has negatively affected the guppies that were in that tank, which really sucks. But I got them from Alyssa. They seem to be doing well. They seem to be breeding. And they just slowly but surely kind of just disappeared. I'm not 100% on what happened, so I can't really give that good of I can't really give out a personal, like, a good explanation of what happened with those guppies, but they just slowly, one by one, just kind of disappeared, which sucks, and I'm not happy about it. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty pissed about the whole situation of, like, getting some fish that are awesome. They're, like, my favorite fish, and then they just slowly, one by one, just died off, and I wasn't that worried about it because there wasn't... there wasn't a bacterial situation. They didn't have ick. They didn't have anything going on. There are no parasites from what I could tell. They just one by one just disappeared. So really sucks. But hey, even somebody like me that has a lot of experience, I screw stuff up all the time too. So I try to tell people not to get too mad about it. But, Don't get too down on yourself. You just keep working and working and working in the hobby and doing what you can. So, I mean, personal experience, that kind of blows, but I couldn't, just racking my brain, I can't really tell exactly what's going on other than the water's most likely buffering down. That would probably be my biggest problem. Like, I don't have enough like calcium and stuff in the water for the guppies. So if I do get guppies again from Alyssa, I know Alyssa's there. Yeah, it sucks. It's a drag. I most likely will put them in a different tank that is way. I'll probably put them in the 240 gallon, to be honest with you, because I have a ton of like laterite and stuff like that. Kiwi Mamo says the dehumidifier water would be RO. Yeah, it would basically be RODI water. Though long story short, the ionization is different. It's not. It's like it's even more deionized for whatever reason, and it should be fine. But you know, but yeah. So that's one of those things. Like, it's the same thing with the crystal shrimp. Sometimes you just sometimes they don't work out. But in my experience with that same kind of situation, whether you need the glass garden, whether you need this, whether you need the Bacter AE, you don't necessarily need it, but it's really easy to overfeed a big colony and allow them to, that whole colony can collapse. I've seen it numerous times. So to play into that, Tommy Clark sent in a $5 super chat. Says, in your opinion, what's your favorite size for a shrimp tank? Hopefully getting a colony in the 100 to 200 member range. My favorite size for a shrimp tank is most likely the 40-gallon breeder. They used to make a 30-gallon breeder that was like my favorite, but they're just so hard to find. It's just stupid to recommend it to anybody. But 40-gallon breeders on end on a rack are essentially what I recommend to most people. Most people want to do a 10 or a 20-gallon. And in my personal experience, most of the good shrimp breeders I know used 30 to 40-gallon tanks on their shrimp colonies to maintain them. I do know some that use smaller tanks, and it is possible for sure. But I would just say to the everyday average person, like, a 40-gallon breeder is not that big of a tank. It doesn't cost that much, realistically. And I honestly think that, like, to those people out there that are like, well, a 40-gallon breeder, it's just too much for me to handle. It's too expensive. It's too this, it's too that. Then let's just not get into high-end expensive shrimp. That would be, people would get mad at me for saying that. They're like, oh, you're being a dick. It's like, I'm not being a jerk. I'm just saying, like, if that's too much of a budget for you, like, let's just figure out something else to do in the hobby that, right? You'd be like, oh, I only want to do a 20-gallon. Like, okay. Then why don't we just do a guppy planted tank? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do a pistos? Why don't we just do something else, So my recommendation is the 40 gallons on end, mainly because of, situations like how the man cave was having earlier, is that in a bigger tank like that, you just have more. You have more of a. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here. You have more of a range to deal with. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have, and I can't think of what it is right now. You have a bigger. What is it? You have a wider range to make mistakes, right? Does that make sense? And you just have more availability to, oh, maybe I fed a little bit too much. It's not going to collapse the whole tank or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a way to explain that, but my words aren't that great today. I was having night terrors all night last night, which was rad. It's a super rad feature during this pandemic to have crazy dreams or wake up in the middle of the night freaking out. It's totally rad. It's a great thing to have that. which means I got to meditate and get more sleep. I got to get more rest. I haven't been sleeping enough. So my recommendation would be a 40-gallon because you have, where's the word? There's a word in there. You have a, man, I don't know. You have more availability to make mistakes without a total disaster. I guess that's the way I'm going to have to put it. There's a good way to say it, but I don't know what the hell it is. Fishkeeper has sent this in. Just hanging out with my shrimps. Nice. And I have to say, nice. All right. I think you guys saw that post, so let's move on to the next post, which is our last one of the day. I mean, we only have a couple. From Dakota L. Davies, says sticker was a touch too big, but it works. So we've got. What's weird, I don't know if she ordered this recently, but yeah, we were making stickers a while ago. I wonder if that Teespring is still up. I don't know. Teespring. I have a Teespring account that I guess people could order from. Get out of here! I don't want 10% off. Stupid nonsense. Let's see. Oh, I don't even have it on this computer. I don't even have the login for the Teespring. So I don't know. There's a Teespring somewhere that has some designs from me, but part of it was those stickers. Some people bought them. Some people didn't. I don't know. I don't know if it's still. I don't know if it's still live. But to be honest with you, Teespring sucks. Their quality sucks. Their shipping is okay. Their fulfillment's okay. And also their compensation sucks really bad for people. So I was like, I don't want to promote Teespring anymore. It was garbage. Realistically, I don't know. Their quality is bad. You know, that's the biggest problem. As far as I'm concerned, like the quality is not that good. And but their shipping was okay. Their fulfillment was okay. But the funny thing is like, so if you started a new, what they call a campaign, I say with air quotes because that's what they call it, a campaign. So let's say you wanted to launch your new shirt and you got 100 people over there to go buy a shirt. The first time that they order a shirt, you get a commission of like $5 or something, right? I think it was like $5.15 or something like that. So you're like, oh, okay, so every time I sell a shirt, I'll make like $5. Okay, that's not bad, but realistically, I only ever had like 5 people buy a shirt, so whatever. But you're like, okay, so let's say $5 a shirt. If I sell 100 shirts, I'll make $500. If I sell 1,000 shirts, I'll make $5,000. Nope, because you put out a new shirt, and if it's somebody that already ordered one of your shirts, then you only make 85 cents off the sale because Teespring considers themselves to have sold your new shirt to an existing customer that Teespring already has. Right? So what is up with that? That they're like, oh, once you bring in a new customer here, we'll give you a commish. And then after that, we're just going to take the whole commission ourselves, basically. So you're like, all right, well, maybe I sell 1,000 shirts, I'll make $5,000. Like, nope, if you sell 1,000 shirts, you'll make $850, which is considerably different in the world of like, it's hard to sell 1,000 shirts, right? So one of the things I was going to do is go and print shirts and sell them, but then I realized like, I'm going to end up having to mail them and all that, and it just is not an effective use of my time. But it's the same kind of deal as like I was talking with the 40-gallon earlier, that there are a lot of people that would go like, that costs too much money for me. I don't want to set up a 40-gallon. That's too expensive. And, if I did the breakdown on the pricing with just a couple of tanks and that kind of stuff, and it's, let's say $200. It's like, even if you're 15 years old out there, you could go work for a couple of days and make $200 and do the thing that you wanted to do. It's not perfect. It's not optimal, but It is what it is. Rumbus with the Swedish Krone super chat, 2159, which I've been sober for 2,159 days. I don't even know. Coming up on 6 years sober, I think. Yeah, is that right? 6 years. Yeah, coming up on 6 years, which congrats to me. Don't worry, I don't want to hear it from anybody else. It's just congrats to me. It's a good thing. It's the right thing for me to do. So I'll just keep doing it. But the thing I wanted to say, he says, margin for error. Yes, you have a wider margin for error. There you go. That's what my brain was looking for. It just wasn't even there. Wasn't there earlier when I was trying to explain. If you have a bigger tank, you have a wider margin of error, margin for error, to be able to do things like breed a bunch of shrimp and stuff like that. Busily chewing the end in their mouth. I don't know what that's about. Thanks, Chevy. I got them to eat bloodworms today. Quite funny to watch them swimming around. I'm confused. So far, I'm coming up. Baddest live food. Sometimes does a mutation carry hidden genes that change their ability to survive like the original? I'm confused. I'm confused by the chat. Let me read here a little bit. I don't know. Trying to catch up on the chat, but it's confusing me right now. There's a lot of chat going on. Michael Damaso says it sucks that Teespring is like that nowadays. I used to be a power seller on there like 5 or 6 years ago and would make $12 to $16 a shirt when I would sell them for $21.99. Yes, you would do that on the first shirt. The first time you sold somebody a shirt on Teespring, you'd make a good commission, and then so that's the deal. It's like you'd make a good commission off the first time you sold somebody a shirt, right? When you sold a different shirt later on to that same person, like let's say you have a new design, when that same person comes back to buy a shirt, then that's when it all drops out. So if you have return customers, then that's not good. It's not good for anybody. Pugimus Maximus saying benefit of having a sump on a 40-gallon breeder or just use a hang-on back. Now, just honestly, it depends like on what it is that you're doing with the tank. Like, I've made videos about like the advantages of having a sump, and one of the biggest advantages of having a sump is increased water volume. So, you potentially could do. Let's say you did like a 40-gallon breeder with a sump. It's basically, let's say you did a 30-gallon sump or something like that. You basically have the water volume of like a 70-gallon tank. So you do have kind of a bigger tank with not necessarily taking up the footprint, So maybe you live in an apartment or something like that. You can have your display tank and a big sump underneath it that matches or is slightly smaller. You really get the water volume for a larger margin of error. I got it. So you'll be able to handle a lot of that stuff, right? In a solid way, as far as I'm concerned. It would be helpful to most people, but as far as a shrimp tank goes, you don't need a sump. If you're running a shrimp tank, you don't need to have a sump. It's not something that has to exist for running shrimp. I mean, realistically, some sponge filters are going to be fine. A lot of floating plants, mosses, stuff like that. You're going to be pretty good to go. Neen 13, good red plants for a low-tech tank. Scarlet Temple, stuff like that. Alternanthera Renekii is pretty good for a low tank. There's not a lot of red plants that are going to grow too well in a low-tech tank. There's only a couple. Scarlet Temple's one of them that's pretty available. Big D Smoke says Scarlet Temple and Crypts. Yeah, there's some Cryptocorini that are okay in a low tank. Jacob Senii comes to mind. Cryptophinus Red, like the metallic red, might do okay, but most of the Crypts that grow red will generally just turn back to their green varietal in a low tech tank. What the hell? No, I got a weird email that just came in, and I'll figure that out later. Looks like some tax stuff. I don't know. The taxes are super stressing me out right now. I got to get those done just so I just don't think about it anymore. That's probably why I was having weird dreams. Ooh, Tiger Lotus is a good one I didn't think of. Tiger Lotus is pretty good in a low-tech tank. Dwarf Aquarium Lily would be pretty good. Yeah, those are both good good examples. Yeah. It didn't pop into my head, but yeah, that's a good low-tech red plant. I'm not a huge fan of most low-tech tanks realistically anyhow, because they get kind of boring to me. As far as running an aquarium, like, I like to run the plants on the razor edge of madness, personally, because it's exciting to me. Let's turn that off. We'll turn the look at the old the Pinto tank. I saw that Bentley was asking earlier if the Crystal Pintos that I got are throwing babies. They are breeding, and there have been some babies. I wouldn't say that it's insane at this point, or anything like that. There are some babies swimming around and that kind of stuff. They're not up to full on breeding yet, but they will. I mean, hopefully, unless something bad happens, then that would be bad, right? Like, if something bad happens, then that's bad. I think. I'm pretty sure that that's what that means, right? I think you guys get what I'm saying. Let's see. Jen Standring is here. Wahoo! Made it to a live stream. It's been like 6 months. Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't normally live stream. It's not something I normally do. I don't normally get on here and talk about nonsense for hours on end. It's pretty rare. I only do it like, a couple times a week. Yeah, as Barbara would say, fire is hot. That's right. Caution. Be careful. Fire is hot. Speaking of fire is hot, my blowtorch broke yesterday. And it was pretty wild, man. I'm going to be honest with you. My blowtorch broke yesterday, and it freaked me out because there was MAP gas flying all over the place, and I kept thinking, I hope that this doesn't explode in a fireball. So that was kind of stressing me out yesterday. But luckily, I ordered a replacement, and Home Depot had one for me this morning. So life is good again with a new torch. I'm going to take the old one apart and see what the hell's going on. But something was going on in the blow-by. It was just coming out of the bypass, which is super weird, but who knows, man. Blowtorches these days are so inexpensive that it's not really that big of a deal, Rochelle was saying, I don't know if I should be asking questions. Why not? I don't know. You could ask inappropriate questions and I just won't answer them. Let's see. I'm getting textical messages. Let's see. Oh, that is the information from earlier. There was a car crash. Somebody got rear-ended. I don't know. Who was it? Rochelle says, I don't know why I can't see my comments in the feed. That I don't know. But I am seeing them, so I'll maybe keep doing it the way you're doing it now, and don't do it the way you were doing it before. I don't know. Jen and Barbara are having a conversation about how they're doing. Well, that's good. Let's see. Crash says, low-tech tanks means Najas Guadalupensis to me. Oh, you guys, I think that the pandemic's getting to everybody. I think it's getting to everybody. Is everybody out there losing their mind yet, being stuck in their house and home and not being able to do their regular stuff? and having to work from home and having their kids home all the time and all the crazy stuff that's going on, it's a bit much. I do have to admit the glaring obviousness that the system that I'm living in here in the United States is completely broken by the standard that, a pandemic happens and everything comes screeching to a halt. Just how many people don't have health care, just how many people don't have any kind of job security. I was listening to Bo, who was talking the other day. That's Bo of the Fifth Column. I like that guy's content a lot. And he was talking about something that was kind of interesting, that now is the opportunity for a lot of people to start getting the work done on organizing your own business and stuff. And it's a real broad talking point. It's a very broad, wide sweeping, not anyone specifically. There's like 20 million people right now that are out of work in just the United States. Speaking to them, that some of those people may or may not have the opportunity to start their own business or something at this point. Now is the kind of the time to get ready to do that, because there's going to be a lot of availability once things start getting going again. So it's a consideration for people. Pugimus Maximus says, nice political, Joel. Let it out. Yeah, you know what? People get mad at me because of my political stances, and sometimes I talk about politics. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the United States who think that it's red team versus blue team, and they idolize people whom I see no reason to idolize at all. But let's be honest, there are a lot of bad people in the world that like to idolize bad people. So, I don't know. Maybe if John Jones, the Fighting McPuncher Man, is your hero, then you think multiple DUIs, car crashes, drug convictions, all that kind of stuff is completely normal. I don't know. Keith Hanshaw says, could you imagine if we didn't have the internet, things would be a lot worse off, or even a power blackout? Yeah, that's right, man. If we had brownouts, no food, that kind of stuff, this whole deck of cards would come crashing down big time. And I think the reality is that there's not enough people in the United States at this point in time who actually take into account politics. Most everybody that I hear are like, there are most people out there that I hear, they're like, I don't do politics. I can't deal with that. I can't deal with it. I can't do it. No, I don't want to talk about that. And, we're at a weird point in time right now where the whole country's come to a standstill. There's things going on, and most of those people that refuse to talk about politics, refuse to understand what's going on, the governing body, the things that are happening around us, they're just kind of in the dark, don't really know what's happening, don't really know what's up. And maybe they're looking to somebody like a UFC fighter to answer their questions for them, and that's not their realm. I do have to admit, I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he had that Dan Crenshaw guy on there again, and there are a lot of people that listen to that guy's just weird, like, there's no backing to his arguments, right? And even when he got a little bit pressured from Joe Rogan, who doesn't even pressure anybody, he just lets them kind of yammer on with their nonsense more often than not. But even when just Rogan asked him some questions, his whole ideology just comes falling down, and you realize it's all nonsense. It's all just pure nonsense. And from my own standpoint here, just as a human being saying we spend too much money on the military here in the United States, we spend too much money on that. Or if we're going to continue to spend that same amount of money, let's at least match the $1.4 trillion every year that goes into the military with, I don't know, some humanitarian projects in the United States. You don't even have to do them overseas, but in the United States. How about that? And just from my standpoint, and I know that Big D Smoke knows what I'm talking about. He's in the chat right here. Since the pandemic has begun, from literally where I am sitting right now, where I live right now, every day before the pandemic, there's 20, 30, sometimes 40 military planes come flying in, and they're loud, and they're landing, and it's not that big of a deal. I don't really care. It's just loud and a little bit annoying, but then on a personal level, every time I see one of those planes flying around, I'm aware that it's about $100,000 an hour to fly those around, total cost, right? So that cost gets in my head. It pisses me off. The noise isn't really that big of a deal. But since the pandemic, there are no planes flying and landing every single day. It's suddenly silent. So all of those so important, constantly flying these big planes around that was so important before the pandemic, all of a sudden this pandemic happens, and now those guys are all doing something somewhere else, and flying those planes around is just not as important. So, right? Like, is this a little bit suspect? I think it's a little bit suspect. I think it's a little bit suspect because what ends up happening is, oh, we have to do 20 training flights a day because that's our standard. And then next year, all of a sudden, it's 21 flights a day. And then the year after that, it's 22 flights a day. It's just, you know, like, but why are they flying all these planes around? Don't they have a flight simulator? They don't have any of that kind of stuff going on. And I could say from my own experience that when the weather gets bad around here, all of a sudden it gets windy, it gets super rainy, it gets super crappy. All of a sudden they start flying giant planes around over the suburbs out here because the weather's bad. Oh, we got a train flying in the bad weather over a bunch of people's houses. So it's just kind of bizarre. And most people don't recognize just how much pollution is coming down on your head when a plane's flying over, by the way. And no, it's not chemtrails. It's just exhaust. There's no chemtrail about it. It's just exhaust. Alyssa says, Crash, we're under a lockdown in Washington State until May 4th. Yes, we are. The stay-at-home order is until May the 4th, so we still have the better part of 4 weeks coming up to supposedly still be working from home and all that kind of stuff. You know. Yeah, Bentley Pascal is his work is considered essential, so I'm in my office, which is like a ghost town. Yeah, that's it's kind of wild out there. Really, it really is. It really is kind of wild out there, really. Neen13 says, I love how you always tell it like it is. I don't always tell it like it is specifically. I never have claimed to be right all of the time. If I am talking about my opinion, it's just my opinion. You know, so I always try to remind people that. Take everything with a grain of salt. You know, my view on things is we should be continuing to progress forward here in the future where we're living right now, right? I'm about to be 40 years old, and I'm going, this is the same shit I've been talking about since I was old enough to recognize that there was stupid nonsense going on in this country, which I would say was right around 1993. So it's bizarre, you know. I think it's personally bizarre. that we're still on to we're still in this weird situation. Bentley Pascal says, my normal commute through traffic to work in the morning is 90 minutes with the lockdown in place, 35. Yep, takes knock an hour off that commute, that's for sure. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, if you are going out, be sure to wear N95 mask or something like that. They're finally recommending it now because on the back end of the recommendations that they were making, so like the World Health Organization and whatnot, the CDC, they were recommending don't wear a mask, stay home. That was their recommendation. Don't wear a mask. It doesn't necessarily see whether or not a mask is going to benefit or whatnot, but they were also taking into consideration more than one group of people, right? And that's because as soon as this pandemic stuff started to happen, everyone went and bought a whole bunch of stuff. So they had to react into the fact that, like, oh, Amazon has no toilet paper or masks or anything like that available anymore, right? That was their basic reaction. Then now at this point, they're going like, look, it's better for people to wear masks if you have available, make something, do something like that, because it's going to definitely stop. It's going to help stop you spreading asymptomatically around at the very least. Take into consideration some other people and that you're not spreading your germs around. It may not stop you from inhaling germs, right? But that's social distancing. So you're going to stay 6 to 10 feet away from people, which it shouldn't be that big of a deal. It shouldn't be that big of a deal to be 6 feet away from other people. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? They could probably hear you from 10 feet away, right? So that shouldn't be a big problem. What is going on with this mic stand? Because I've got a camera thing here. All right, whatever. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to have this mic be in the right spot. Maybe I'll go like this. I'm going to move over here, and then I'll move the camera like that. Oh, that's better. I'm just going to sit over here. I'm sitting more over to the side. Okay, there we go. So it shouldn't be a big deal to be distant from people that could hear you from 10 feet away. It shouldn't be a problem. And just be cautious, because they were initially giving out the advice to wash your hands, don't touch your face, do that kind of stuff. Because that's the basic advice that you give everybody, whether they are working in food service, at the hospital, wherever, it doesn't matter where they are. Like, that's the recommendation that they give to people, is that, like, wash your hands frequently, don't touch your face, don't put your fingers in your mouth, don't, whatever you're doing. It's just the thing. Neen 13 actually had to ship toilet paper across the state to my sister-in-law. Yeah, so that was kind of one of the weird things, is that they were trying to react to what was actually happening in the market, to try and tell people, like, stop buying all of this stuff and putting it in your closet somewhere or whatever. It's just not going to work. Zen Ginger says, I almost forgot. I checked my Instagram yesterday and apparently got one of the game codes for your game. Going to set everything up later and try it. Yeah. I haven't tried that game yet because I've not been able to add anything into my schedule. It's not working. This work from home, kid from home, Vicky work from home, everybody doing everything from home is just not, it's not working well. Like I said, I was having crazy dreams waking up with the hot cold sweats. You know what I'm talking about? In the middle of the night. Freaking out. Because I thought, I don't know what was going on in my sleep, but I woke up, was freaking out, and it was bizarro. But, yeah. Punchy Paints just showed up and said, I am late. Well, hey, better late than not showing up, right? Better showing up and hitting the like button than not showing up at all, right? Isn't that how that goes? We got to do that YouTube stuff. Hey, guys, we got to do, I got to do my salesmanship thing. Here comes my commercial. Bump, 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 pants. Bump, 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 pants. Today's show is brought to you by pants. We all sometimes wear pants, right? Just like you, just like me. Sometimes we put on pants. Hey, if you're somebody that wears pants, why not become a member on this channel by clicking the join button down there? It starts out at $5 a month, and then you will be a member. Then you will be able to join our Discord chat, where we chat 24 hours a day and exchange pictures, not unlike this video right here that is playing on this YouTube channel, right? Meow. Or maybe you don't like YouTube that much and want to give them a cut of the dineros that you are giving them. You could go over to Patreon, www.patreon.com/JOEL_C. Then you can add to this Patreon number right over here that is at currently 241 peoples and wear pants all at the same time. Pants. Friday. Okay, commercial's over. It was bullshit. Anyhow, yeah, I would appreciate your guys' support if you want. If not, then you don't have to. Let's move on. Because I could just check. I could check the box that I said it. I said that I said it today, and I will be like, I did that part of the thing that I was supposed to do. Rianne says, so in 2019, federal spending was $4.5 trillion. Military spending only accounted for $716 billion of that. Yeah, it's a lot, but we spend way more on other stuff. Well, that's nonsense, because you need to actually add in all of the military spending, all of the Department of Defense spending, and that adds up to $1.2 to $1.4 trillion. So you're going to have to go back and add all that stuff up. And by the way, that's the discretionary budget and not all of the budgetary overruns. It's actually kind of really fun when you go look at the spending budget and they just give you the discretionary budget and they don't let you know how much they actually spent. Newsflash. They don't tell you in the budget how much they're going to spend over the budget, because that comes out the next year. And then you find out just how much the deficit is. Yeah. So because of operations like Afghanistan, they're able to say, well, we have to required spending because our boys are overseas. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. And with things like occupied forces in Japan, occupied forces in South Korea, occupied forces in Germany, stationed overseas, guess what? You can extend the budget and go over the budget at any point in time because they're overseas. Yeah, so you're going to have to look up how much money was actually spent, not what the budget is. But by the way, this last year, they expanded the budget over $130 billion. They increased that budget, and part of that is producing landmines. Landmines have not been produced in the United States for over 25 to 28 years, depending on which source you go with, because they got outlawed, because they're like roadside bombs produced by the government, which we, guess what, attack other countries because of things like IEDs, but now we produce those again. So that's totally rad. Let's keep doing that, right? Nonsense. I got a discount on my 75-gallon tank setup so I can put 2 pairs of Corvus fish and have surviving babies. Or should I just have 1 pair? Highly planted Malaysian driftwood Fluval 3.0 Eheim 2217. I love those Eheim numbers. They're totally nonsense, right? Got a discount on my 75 gallons, so can I put 2 pairs of Corvus fish and have surviving babies? In my experience, yes, 75-gallon is big enough for 3 pairs of Corvus, which Vicky Toria and myself both operated for quite a while. And yes, we had lots and lots of crib babies for sure. The adults will like run them off and eat them and mess with them and stuff like that, but they definitely will continue to survive. I wouldn't personally recommend it just because of the stressful nature of operating a tank with that many fish breeding and the babies and everything going on and trying to maintain it all. So I try to keep the breeding stuff, I try to keep the breeding stuff to just a pair and kind of know what's happening. It's a lot easier to track what's going on. Aquarium Adventures is here. What's up, buddy? Coming all the way over from, as they say, the other side of the pond. You mean that gigantic ocean that's in between? Yeah. So as far as those crebensis go, same with apistos. Like I just try to keep a breeding pair per tank, that kind of stuff. But you can definitely do 3 pairs in a 75. Just don't be so concerned about keeping the babies. Some will survive and grow up, So it's definitely something you can do. We just weren't super concerned about maintaining the babies. We just let the good ones grow up and become full grown. So if you're into breeding them and trying to breed them and trying to keep the babies alive, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a bit of a paddling if you have that many fish in there. So I'd keep that in mind. Zen Ginger with a $2 super chat. Pants, woot! I don't know how to do the woot. Woo! Something like that. I don't know. I don't know how to do the woot. Dragon Lair says, I'm the naked aquarist. I think there is a naked aquarist. Somebody who has their no pants on, I think, at some point in time. Yeah. I spent $800 on my 75-gallon setup this week. Brand new, $350 worth of Fluval Shrimp Stratum. How do you spend $350 on Shrimp Stratum? I don't know. I got 3 cribs, but 2 are female. That's probably what I would do. I would do a male and 2 females. That's probably what I would do, realistically. How do you spend $350 on Stratum? That's pretty wild. I mean, I buy like a bag is like $30, I think. Yeah, I think it's right about there. Zen Ginger says, Joel says, apistos. Yeah, I don't know. I don't pronounce anything correct. I'm from a weird part of the world called America, where nobody really knows how to speak properly. So, that's it. 42 here in Massachusetts and snowing. Well, that's bizarre, John. I don't know what's going on in Massachusetts, but, hopefully you're staying safe out there. It's weird that it'd be snowing and that warm. But it is 65 and sunny here. Well, maybe it's not 65 yet, but it will be pretty soon. It's nice and sunny out and beautiful and luscious and delightful outside. It's kind of too bad that there's a pandemic going on because it would be kind of fun to be out there like doing the thing. You know what I mean? Huh. Well, that's weird. What? I've got like 900 notifications going on right now. I got to make sure none of them are any kind of emergency. Because Vicky got rear-ended this morning. It's fine. The car's fine. Everybody's fine. There's nothing wrong with anybody. But they got rear-ended this morning. Grandma is here. We have backup finally. As of like yesterday, late afternoon. We have backup finally to help watch the baby and stuff. And they went to the grocery store this morning and got rear-ended by the only other car on the road, which is bizarre. Poke Nagomi, ideal place to live in the USA. In the world, there's a lot, I think people don't really realize like how big the continental United States is. Like just the continental U.S. minus Alaska, Hawaii, that kind of stuff, Guam, Puerto Rico, all that stuff. And, there's a lot of good places in the U.S., but what I think a lot of people don't realize is that the continental U.S. it's like as big as Europe, right? So, like just the area that I live in, the state that I live in, which is one of 50, the continental U.S. is 48 states. We were talking about this. It was like if you were to drive from Copenhagen to what's the big what's the big city in Sweden? Capital of Sweden. Stockholm. God, brain farts. Brain farts for days, guys. I'm out here living in the pandemic, getting weird down here. Getting weird down here in the office, you know what I'm saying? So if you drove from Copenhagen up to Stockholm, which in the European terms, you'd be like, oh, you went pretty far. Oh, you went all the way up to Stockholm. That's cool. Just in the small state of Washington where I live, if I drive from, it's not even one end to the other end. It's literally like a third of the way in from where I live in Tacoma. If I was to drive to Spokane, which is still in the same state, it's just over there, over the mountains and stuff, it would be basically the same drive to go from Copenhagen to Stockholm, right? I think that's right. Let me double check. Let me check my map. Let me zoom out on my map. Yes, it is right. So if I go from Copenhagen in Denmark, because this is one of the drives I want to do when I go to Europe one of these times. I want to go drive from Copenhagen up to Stockholm. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Don't get mad at me about it. It's just something I want to do whilst driving the car. Automobile. Maybe I'll bicycle it, and then people will get really mad. Because I could do a vlog about like how sweaty my seat area is from so much bicycling. And people would be like, oh my God, what does this have to do with aquariums? And I'd be like, it has nothing to do with aquariums. We're in Europe, you human. I was going to say, son of a bitch. But we already probably got demonetized today anyhow because I said shit earlier. So I'm probably demonetized out here in the pandemic. Then again, if I said coronavirus, I'll probably get demonetized anyhow. But yeah, I really want to drive I want to go to Denmark. I want to check out some of the fish tank stuff in Denmark, 100%. 100% want to check out Copenhagen. It's on my list. It's on my list of towns, cities I want to explore someday. And then I want to drive up to Stockholm, Sweden, and then drive back around. Because if you go up the what looks like the E22, you go up the coast, and then you come back down via the E4 or the E6. Yeah. So you can do a loop-de-loop, go up the E18 around to Orebro. I'm saying that wrong. I know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to speak any Swedish at all. But that's something I want to do. It's on my bucket list, bros. And ladies are bros too, by the way. If anybody's ever out there wondering, like when I say bro, I mean ladies are bros too. I don't think that this PayPal notification is a real email. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that because I don't trust it. Orebro. I don't know. There's probably like a cool way to say it. But every time I try to pronounce anything, anytime I try to pronounce any of the European languages like Danish, Swedish, Dutch, any of that kind of stuff, they always tell me they're like, you sound like an angry German. So my apologies to anybody out there if it sprites your I don't know, maybe you're triggered. I don't know what the word is, but as typical, like this is what I normally get. So like if I'm wearing a hat, right, this helps to isolate the what people think I'm mad region, right? This isolates this area right here that people are like, he must be mad. Oh, Aquarium Adventures says Edinburgh. I'm supposed to give Edinburgh a go. I don't know. I probably say it wrong. But you know, like I said, I'm American, you know, what am I supposed to do? I grew up around people that don't know how to pronounce things. Although I would say that most of the people I grew up around are pretty conscious of what's going on in the world and stuff like that, right? But I grew up in a part of the world that's pretty predominantly just pronouncing our own things, our own things here. And, just geographically, like I grew up in a part of the United States that's like pretty integrated, I guess, to a certain degree, because I grew up in a part of the U.S. that has like a large Asian community, a large Hispanic community, a large, I guess, African American community, which all that kind of stuff. Like I grew up in a pretty diverse area, and it's hard for me to realize that like there's a lot of parts of the U.S. that are just like it's all white people, which is just bizarre. But also, by that extent, all of the schools I went to spoke English. Everything was just English in this accent that I have, which is, I don't know what my accent is. It's like a mishmash. So I'm not the best at pronunciation, is basically all I was just talking about that whole time. But Aquarium Adventure said I got 10 out of 10. So maybe I'm getting better in my old age here. Maybe I'm getting more patient or something. I don't know. Who knows? Aquarium Adventure stayed in Colorado with a family for a month, and they couldn't pronounce Glasgow for no matter how much I tried. Yeah, Glasgow I might not be able to say right, probably. Kalimar or just the Deep South, yuck, never ever living there again. Yeah, I don't know if I think I would probably have a good a reasonable time in the South. I normally have a fairly pretty easy go of it down there, but yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to deal with people that are like heavily indoctrinated, and there seems to be more of that in the southern states. It seems pretty prevalent, right? And the reason I say that is because most of my hyper conservative Southern friends, which I do have a lot of friends from the South, definitely have like really strong opinions about things that I always find to be really odd. Like, I remember a few years ago, a very conservative friend of mine was very concerned about who was using the bathroom or not. And, the progressive people I know don't have this conversation like ever. We don't ever have a conversation about whether or not transgender people or whatever should be using the bathroom. But the conservative talking point was like, who is going to pay for these bathrooms? And it's like, what? Like, that's your concern? Your concern is like the construction cost of new buildings to have like a bathroom that anybody could use, which already exists right now, which is a sink, a toilet, a door, a trash can, paper towels, and soap and hot water to wash your hands, right? Like, what? Who cares? Like, you're like, that's a bathroom. Like, we already have that figured out. Like, you just changed the sign out front that just says bathroom. I don't know. It's very interesting. Kathy Gesh says, I'm not a bro, dude. Yeah, everyone's a bro, dude. Everyone's a dude, bro. Everyone's a bro, dude, bro. It's how I talk, man. I'm from the West Coast. Everyone's my bro. Everyone's my dude. So, yeah. Matt Rondo says, Deep South here, originally from Boston. Mind-blowing difference on speech and general way they carry themselves in daily routine. Yeah, I mean, everybody has that. Everybody definitely has those differences. But one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that my deep conservative friends from the South and stuff like that, they normally have these problems with these societal issues, right? Until they have personal contact with somebody of that of whatever that thing is, right? So a good example would be like a state senator that ends up having a gay person in their family. All of a sudden, they're totally good. All of a sudden, they're totally fine with, same-sex marriage and all that kind of stuff. But up until before that, it was like, oh no, not in my country or whatever, right? But then all of a sudden they have personal contact with somebody who happens to be gay, then they're like, oh no, Steve's cool, or Bob or John or Richard or whatever. Oh no, they're cool. Okay, yeah, never mind. Now I can see it. And the subtle difference, I think, from my own perspective is not my perspective isn't any different, right? My perspective is the same. Like, I'm a progressive person. Like, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, right? My brain also operates the same way. I was just exposed to more of those situations throughout my life, right? Does that make sense? Because where I grew up, it was more acceptable to just be who you were, right? As long as you aren't screwing with other people, right? Which is our whole American thing, right? As long as you aren't screwing with other people, you just get to be who you are, and was more acceptable in the area that I grew up in, right? So I knew gay people, I knew transgender people, I knew Asian people, Korean people, Chinese people, Japanese people, and the difference between them, Australians, Germans, Welsh people, right? Like, I have a friend from Wales, right? And so I was definitely exposed to more of that because of a more diverse area that I grew up in that was more accepting of who people are and stuff. And so my thought process is the same as like, oh, I can relate to what that is because I've been already exposed to go like, oh, I'm just going to make up a person. I'm not talking about anybody specifically. But like, oh, my friend John is a gay guy, and it turns out that doesn't actually have anything to do with me. And yes, of course, that person should have the same rights, right? So I've been exposed to that stuff throughout my whole life, and I was really thinking about that the other day. Was having been in touch with more people like that from the world as opposed to a very insulated situation. I got a friend from Ohio come out a while back, a few years ago, and the funny joke with that is we went to a Mexican restaurant for dinner, and he literally was asking, like, what is this on the table right here? Like, what's this little bowl of stuff? And you're like, it's pico de gallo, man. You put your chips in there. It's salsa. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's weird. And you're like, it's 2017, bro, and you don't know what pico de gallo is? Like, but I guess you just come from a part of the world that's never been exposed to it before, and then you're like, what is that? What? I don't know. Freaking me out. 48 Tom W says, I went to Fort Benning in Georgia for boot camp in the 80s. I hated that place. The humidity was horrible and had walking pneumonia the entire 4 months. Yeah, respect. I would hate everything too when I've had pneumonia, and I pretty much have that same opinion when in that position. Barbara Jackson said, I visited a small town in the Midwest, 4 churches in the town. None of the people in the East Church would associate with the others in those other churches. Definition of provincial. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but you get the point, right? Is that we've unfortunately had these governing bodies and positions and ideology, right, that doesn't represent like what people need and stuff. And it really it's getting to me in the year 2020 that ideology is overpowering facts, evidence, reality. Oh, there we go. Zen Ginger's helping me out. Provincial. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate ya. I realized like why my brain's not working today. I haven't eaten any food, and it is 12:30. I didn't eat breakfast. I just went to work. I got up, took a shower, I shaved, took a shower, and went to work in my shop. And I haven't eaten anything today, and that's probably why my brain isn't functioning good. You have to feed it. Crash says it's not about the money; it's about intolerance. I could understand where you're coming from on that, but I think that the money income is fueled by the ability to maintain intolerance and just sticking with an ideology, regardless of what the actual facts are. And I think something that doesn't have to do with religion or rights or any of that kind of stuff would be the environment, right? We know through piles and piles and piles of studies that are going on that we are affecting and effecting our environment of the planet that we live on, right? It would be impossible to not acknowledge the fact that I have a hat here that had to be produced from some kind of resource from the earth. Yes, the earth is large, but it is a finite amount of resources. It is a finite system. It is a system that we're all living in and stuff, and we are affecting it. And yet, millions of people are like, that's a hoax. And you're like, well, why would you say it was a hoax? Because I heard it was a hoax. What? Who'd you hear it from? Some guy. Well, who's that guy? Is he like a doctor, a scientist? Somebody who reads, maybe? Like, no, just a guy. Like, oh, okay. Well, I don't take all of my life lessons from Brad Pitt because he's just a guy. Do I appreciate his artwork? Yes. Do I think he's probably a reasonable human? Yes. But I certainly don't take all my opinions from that guy, right? So I think it's just one of those things. Like, climate change is happening, and we are doing stuff to make that stuff happen. Now, whether you think it's to the degree or not, we could talk about that. It's sort of the situation earlier, like, the published budget is $716 billion, but they spent $1.4 trillion on all the other projects. Just the United States basically the United States Online Task Force. So it's like the computer nerds in just the U.S. governmental agencies is like close to $600 billion. So that's how much they're spending on that crap. So it'd be weird to think that all the other stuff that's going on is just $116 billion, right? Dirty old farmhand says, my wife won't cook me breakfast today because I'm bad. I'm 53. How bad can I be? That's pretty reasonable. But I don't know. Maybe she has her reasons. And she just hasn't told those to you yet. You should probably consider communication to figure that out. You got to have the open lines of communication in any kind of relationship. And, Kathy Gesh says, what about aquatic plants, guppies, and shrimp? I definitely talked about that at the beginning of the show, getting down to the end of the show. So kind of just talking about whatever I feel like talking about at this point in the show. Terry's Tropical Tank says, spying on the world doesn't come cheap. That's right. It doesn't. It's costly. Big D Smoker says, it's funny how how people feel they have the right to force their own beliefs and religion on others, but then yell about religious freedom anytime someone questions them. Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. We have an untaxed business in the United States, and that is the church. They provide a service. They have a commercial space. They provide a service, the Sunday services, but yeah, we don't tax them. So any other business in the U.S., we got to tax them, but not churches. Why do the Mormons have hundreds of billions of dollars in secret money? What's going on there? Joel G says, are they doing the snitch on your neighbor thing in America like they are here for Corona? Well, I don't know. I think that if people are having gatherings and stuff like that, I think that they're being reported and whatnot, but I wouldn't know. I mean, I've been home. So, the sun controls the climate, and the IPCC is now changing their tune. The Earth cool much faster after the oceans release excess heat from their solar max cycles. I don't know. 48 Tom, I would like to see more on that. I know it's hard to type in, but, you know, if you become a member, you could join the Discord. You could do that kind of stuff. You could join Patreon. You could post up your stuff, and we could talk about it. Chevy Fish says, it has been nutritionally proven that if you eat just one spoonful of peanut butter in the morning, that you will be able to mentally function clearer, sharper, and better. And kids get better test scores. Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to eat something in the morning. I didn't eat anything today. I don't know. I'm being bad, I guess. Guys, at the moment, all USA are locked up. I'm in Washington State. Apparently, our federal government is claiming that they don't have any authority. You know, that's been the big stance over the last couple days, is that, like, well, you know, we can't tell anybody what to do, even though you're the federal government. You're collecting all these taxes, and it's chaos and stupid. But whatever. They're saying that they can't do that now, so it's been up to each state whether or not we're going to have a stay-at-home order. So, yeah, it's been nonsense. Aquarium Adventure says the police here are watching dumps, as in tip, for people making unnecessary trips rather than checking on domestic violence, etc. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the hell is going on in the UK. I wish I knew, but that sounds a little crazy. But, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, not all states. It's from Chevy Fish. Yeah, it's varying and different in every state here, and it's bizarre, and it's very, very bizarre. Punchy Paint says Wyoming has no stay-at-home order. We have a stay-at-home suggestion. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. All of the stay-at-home orders, and they closed non-essential businesses and stuff like that. You know, they made bans here in Washington State. I don't know how they're punishable or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how any of that is going. There haven't really been that many people that are like just disobeying it. I think most people in Washington State are pretty. I think most of the people in Washington State are pretty, you know, rational in the idea that we should follow the recommendations. Oh, here we go. Gillett sent me it. Prepare to have your mind blown, man. I will prepare to have my mind blown. MD Fish Tank says, for me, it's pretty much normal. YouTube creator is basically the same as social distancing. Yeah, it's very true. A lot of it's exactly the same. And by the way, shout out to MD. Hit 100,000 subscribers today. Digging it, man. That is a huge pat on the back, and congratulations, my guy. That's fantastic. I do have to admit, hey man, I'm a flawed person. I've told you all before. I am a flawed person. I am not perfect, and I'm definitely not correct all the time. My first initial gut, honest reaction when I see people being super successful is I get a little bit depressed, and I go, oh man, I wish I was doing better. But that's all part of just being a human. It's in my head, but I don't mind telling it to you guys. because maybe it will help somebody just get through their day and be able to take a step back for a second, take a deep breath, and go, you know what? I'm actually super happy when people are succeeding, and that's rad. I always just like to admit it to you guys so that I can help give you guys just a little glimpse at like, hey, I am a human, just like you guys, and it's all good. We shall continue to make mistakes and continue moving forward. Yeah, so just congratulations, MD. That is rad, dude. I love seeing people get up to 100K like that. I mean, that's the reality. The reality is I'm excited to see people be successful, but I just always want to tell people, like, man, I do get a little bit depressed at my own non-success. I guess that's what it is, you know. Charlie says, when are you two going to have escape off? This I want to see. I think we're going to have to do that at some point in time. I do have a plan at some point to be able to coordinate some scape off stuff online so that everybody can be kind of involved. But a lot of it boils down to time, availability, resources, that kind of stuff. But you know, that's just life. You know what I mean? I would love to do some scape offs. I'd actually love to fly out to the UK. I was supposed to be in Europe in 5 weeks, 6 weeks or whatever from now. So who knows? But at some point in time, we'll definitely figure out something to have some fun with that. I think it would be fun. I know George Farmer was always doing the scape off with Joey. I wouldn't mind doing a scape off with George, but yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So we'd have to figure something out. I'm just kind of making me think like, what could we do if we were going to do something in person? But I don't know. We'll figure it out at some point in time. Maybe we'll fly out to Germany and go scape something in Germany for fun. It would be fun. I don't know. I'm getting tired and hungry, guys. So coming up on the end of the show, I'd like to give a shout out to whoever was here today. I don't know who was here today. Viewer activity. Let's see. Fish Tank Barn, Tommy Clark, Rum Bust, and the Zen Ginger. All right, that's our super chats for the day. That's who we know was here for sure. No new members today. So that's that. We're still at 90 members. We've never hit 100, but, you know. Yeah, honestly, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I want to go eat something. So, yeah, I'm going to go do that. All right, guys.